Tell me about dragging the main.
Okay.
Where was that at? And
Right on Fulton
did you ever do
Street.
it?
Yeah,
Where was it?
it was Fulton Street. We went up, because it was two-way. You went up one way and down the other. And you saw your friends, and you'd yell and say hi to them. Sometimes there would be people get out of a car and get in somebody else's car, back and forth. That was in the 40s, I think, late 40s probably.
So you were in high school then?
Yeah.
You used to do that?
Yeah, but I mean, I was 15 or something. That's pretty big at that time.
Your
Yeah.
parents let you go and hang out and drag the main?
Well, I don't know that they knew we were dragging the main, you know.
Would you tell them you were going to the library or something?
No, just going downtown. That was about it, you know. Because sometimes, well, I was with Nellie a lot, which is my best friend, and we'd go to a movie, and then when we got out, we had a certain corner we stood on and waited for the bus. So a lot of the guys that we knew came by, and they'd give us a ride. That's how I met Richie. She knew Richie, so he was in the car, and then I started dating him. But the people just had a good time. You went up and you saw who was going past that way, and then when you turned around, you were going that way. And people just were friendly, waving.
Were there like restaurants you went to, or like the Mars Drive-In, or?
Well, there was a drive-in, but it wasn't on the main. It was on, God, I know it was. It was more on Olive and
Or Belmont,
yeah, something like that.
Olive,
Yeah.
Belmont, yeah.
Yeah, but for the dragging the main, and this is kind of a funny thing that just Bevan, especially me, I was kind of young for doing it, and I was in a car with a bunch of people talking about dragging the main. I thought it meant we were going to have Chinese noodles, chow mein, yeah, and so we kept going up and down that street, and I guess I was the youngest one because I was her sister or something like that, and we never had any chow mein, and so I'm glad I didn't ask when we were going to have it, because that's what I was expecting to have happen. So that's what I first thought dragging the main was. Then later on, I knew. I was a little older, and it was just fun. You saw people that you hadn't seen from school for a long time, and yeah, it was busy, and it was right on Fulton Street. The cars would just be lined up, going and coming and going, you know.
And can you tell me any interesting stories about things that happened while you were going out and hanging out on the main drag?
Well, probably the most interesting and lasting thing was meeting Richie and starting dating him, and because he was from Sanger, and he wasn't in town all the time, and so I went with him for probably a year or something, steady. I went to his prom, and I didn't sign him in time to take him to mine, so he didn't get to go with mine, but I went to his prom. But I can't think of anything real exciting. There wasn't any murder on the drag while dragging the main. And the police weren't really in evidence at that time. Well, it was a milder time, really. It was the time of the war, the Depression, and then the war. People were worn out. We didn't want to have any more big ruckuses with people, you know.
So was the war still going on then?
Well, it was over in 44, so maybe it was on for a little bit. But, we'll see, I would only be 12 then.
I think it went on a little longer than that.
Yeah. No, I don't think it did.
World War II?
46, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. So, what do you remember about that, about the war?
Well, I remember the last day of the D-Day, or whatever they call VJ Day.
Mm-hmm.
It was victory in Japan, and then the regular D-Day. Boots and Gnarly, they had a big street dance that night, and the whole Fulton Mall was closed off and stuff like that. But Bev and I weren't quite old enough to go. Maybe Bev would have been, but she didn't go without me. Boots and Gnarly went, and they went down and danced with all the guys and kissed them all and told us all about it the next day, you know. And it sounded like a thrilling time, and they had pictures in the paper. In fact, I think that I might still have one of those papers because I think Mother saved them, you know. And you saw the guys kissing the girls, and especially one picture, like a sailor, had a woman just bent almost to the ground, giving her a big kiss and stuff. So that was a celebration of the end of the war. We were all, and it was the war to end all wars, of course. So we're glad all the wars were going to be ended. And innocence is a sweet price to pay, I guess.
So was there ever any fear in the German community? Because, you know,
yeah, the
mother's
Japanese
side was German, and then the Japanese all got
yeah.
put in detainment camps.
Mother was afraid of being picked up. There never was any talk of it. But when she saw what was happening to the Japanese people, her and her sisters talked about, do you think they'll get the German people too? But nothing ever came of that, so that was good. But the Japanese people, I mean, they weren't any more harmful than the German people. The Germans were probably a little worse.
What do you remember? Anything about the politics of that time? Was there?
I remember Hitler.
Yeah.
And making speeches, and just how it. Well, because they used to have if you went to a movie, they had a newsreel before it, and it was of all the war and stuff, and that's how they have those clips now, because of those newsreels that they had. But I remember seeing Hitler a lot, and his, you know, he gave speeches and raised his, and said Heil Hitler first, and Mussolini and Tojo. That was the three enemies we had during the Second World War. Italy, Japan, and Germany.
Do you remember like being surprised at how Jewish people were treated by the Germans?
You know, see, strangely enough, I don't even really remember that very much. Maybe we didn't hear that much about it, or maybe I just didn't take it in. I knew later, you know, especially with Anne Frank's book and stuff like that. I might not have known about it till then, because I don't remember knowing that about the Germans. But I do remember asking Mother, how come the German people let Germany, you know, bomb us and everything like that? And she said, well, they were just people living in their houses trying to stay out of the war and didn't know what to do, I guess. But I remember asking her, how could they let him do that?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah.
So downtown Fresno at the time, that was like where everybody went, right? I mean, there wasn't a fashion fair and River Park or anything, but downtown was like where you went if you...
If you weren't downtown, you weren't anywhere. Like Manchester was the first one they put in, but that was pretty close to downtown, you know. But nobody drugged Manchester. It didn't have a reputation like that at all. So it was dragging the main, and people would look for people waiting for buses if they knew them and pick them up and take them home or date them or whatever they did with them. It was a pretty big thing.
So where did young people go after they, like, if they went and dragged the main and found somebody they liked? Did they go to the movies, or did they go to nightclubs?
No, that was up to them. I mean, did they go and park and kiss and make out?
Or what, you know, I'm just wondering what the, you know, what it was. Was there nightclubs, or were there people go to movies, restaurants?
Well, there were nightclubs, but when I was dating, I wasn't old enough to go to the nightclubs because you had to be over 21. By the time I was 21, I was married. So I didn't get into that at all. But I imagine a lot of them did. Or maybe went to a movie. That's what we did more than just about anything else, go to a movie.
which were the movie theaters in downtown Fresno, the Crest, the Wilson, Warner's.
Yeah, Warner's and Wilson were the top notch. They were 11 cents to go. Yeah, 11 cents to go into those. And then we had this, they're not even there anymore, and probably weren't during, do you remember the State and the Kinema at all? Okay, because those are the two medium ones that they were in the very central district where Guarantee Savings is, right by that corner, one on one side and one on the other. And those were, I don't know what they cost, but the really cheap ones, you could go to the Fulton Flea House, is what they call that, for 9 cents. Yeah, and it only cost 9 cents there. And then the white was a little bit bigger and a little bit better and cost 10 cents. Yes, but so for 9 cents you could go to a movie at the Flea House. For 10 cents you got to go into a little bit better theater. You know.
Do they call it the Flea House because people got fleas going there?
I guess so. I mean, that was just what they called it, always the Fulton Flea House. We went sometimes, but I don't think we went there very much, you know.
Were there drive-ins at that time?
Yeah, well, you mean drive-in for movies?
Yeah.
I don't know if Moonglow, because this is one of the first ones that opened out here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And did that open after you bought this house?
I'm thinking it
there
was
before?
there. I'm thinking the screen was up there.
Uh-huh.
And we went to it before we even moved in here. Because for a while, Donna, one of my friends that you were with her son Wayne, showed where, and Susie, but Nellie was living out of town, so she never went with it. On Sunday night, Donna and I would get you and Wayne and go to the movie, and a lot of times it would be right over there because it was so convenient. Well, that's Kent on the far side, and you in the middle, and then Kenny, and then your dad, John. And we were at their house, I think it was some holiday or something. Looked like a summertime holiday. And we were just over there, and I don't know, they were sitting there, so we took that picture because you and Kent were only like, as you can see, months apart. And I guess Kenny and Johnny were in line like that too. It came first Jack, then Dell, then Kenny, then John, then Billy Don, those 5 brothers. And so I guess you were just out playing with the kids there, and we decided to take a picture of you. I don't really remember being there. I mean, maybe I wasn't there. No, that is Kenny and Pearl, and that's how I remember them being. And really both nice people. But by the time Maddie, your grandma, had died, they had divorced, and I met Pearl there at her funeral, and she just was like a real hard businesswoman then. You know, you couldn't really talk to her or anything. She just, I don't know, business people are different than housewives, you know. They aren't that friendly. They don't have the time for you anymore. So that was kind of how she was then. But they were both sweet people, although Bev's first, how I met your dad was through Kenny, because at the skating rink, Bev skated with Kenny, and I mean, that's as far as I know what happened with him. But then later on, they brought out your dad, who doesn't really look anything like Kenny, because your dad's kind of dark and he's kind of on the light side, and tried to say it was Kenny because Kenny was married and shouldn't have been skating with Bev or whatever, you know. So that's how I first met your dad.
Was he already married to Pearl?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So.
And he was that young and still like going out with other women.
Yeah, well, at least he didn't go any places where he skated all night. I mean, everybody would have thought they were a couple, you know. But I don't think he took her home or anything like that. But he was skating with her.
Uh-huh. Do you remember doing anything with Kenny and Pearl and you and my dad?
Well, yeah, they stood up for our wedding. Bev and Ernie were on my side. Kenny and Pearl were on his side, which was just kind of embarrassing, I would think, for Kenny, you know, because they would, and then we went out and had Chinese food afterwards. But I don't really remember visiting them a lot at their house or anything. Well, it seems like we had, well, it was after we were married, that we had this house and they weren't mad about it, but they said everybody wondered why they didn't get a better house, you know, because we bought a brand new house because, well, Kenny was not a veteran for one thing, so they wouldn't have qualified like we did. But I'm sure that, well, I know he's dead now, and probably she's remarried. You could try to find out from Charlene sometime.
Okay. So going back to your wedding, so there was just the two of you and Bev and Ernie and Kenny and Pearl.
Yeah.
And was that in Fresno? And what did you do afterwards? You went out and ate Chinese?
We got married in a church, but it was just, in fact, no one, well, I don't know what the crazy idea was that nobody was invited. We were just going to get married in the church. They were going to stand up with us. But then Mother came down and was holding Nat, because Nat was just a baby still then. And I know that Johnny's folks got kind of mad when they knew that my mother was there. You know, because she would have liked to come, but Johnny said, no, they don't want anybody there, just the preacher and us. So I don't know that.
So your mom did come?
She did. She appeared. Nat was at my funeral. I almost said was at my funeral. No, he was at the wedding too, as a baby, you know, because, well, he wasn't, he was probably about Ash's size. You know.
So you must have thought about that. Did you made a decision not to invite family?
Well, yeah, I think Bev put a precedent on it. Like, that's how she did it. And so I guess I figured that's how it was done. But I don't know, it seems kind of rude now. But
You didn't want to have a larger wedding?
Oh, no, I didn't want a big wedding, that's for sure. I was never the little girl that couldn't wait to have a big wedding. You know, I wanted to be over as fast as possible. And I can still remember how scared I was standing there. I felt I could see my shadow, and I felt like I was just weaving back and forth, and that it was taking a long time. I was scared. I mean, I don't know why I was so scared, but I was scared.
Did you guys go anywhere afterwards, like on a honeymoon or anything?
No, I think he went back to the East Coast. You know, he wasn't out of the service yet. He still had time to serve. He didn't get out till you were born. So he got out at just the time he was here with me when you were being born. But, yeah, I think he had to get back to the East Coast or something.
So you must have been very much in love with him when you got married.
Well, yeah, I was. I thought I was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I thought I was. Yeah, and it did go really well for quite a while until I don't even know what set it off. I mean, it could have been when he spanked you when you were crying, when you were just a baby. Because it'd be just like if they spanked Josh, or if Josh had spanked him, you know.
Ash.
Ash, yeah.
So that's when things started going downhill.
Well, it made me real mad at him, which I had never been that mad at him before, that he would spank a child and then just say, and he'd say, well, he doesn't have any reason to cry. And I said, he's just a baby or something like that. And he said, well, I have bad times too and I don't cry. And I mean, it was just pretty, I never had seen that side of him before, you know. But yeah, I did really think I was in love with your dad when I married him.
So looking back on it now, how well do you think you knew him when you got married?
Not well enough, but I had known him a long time, and we wrote. Of course, I didn't know he had my picture in his wallet all that time, too. Because we didn't write love letters or anything. I wrote and told him who I was going out with in Clovis that he knew and what we did. And he wrote and told me how drunk they got over in Okinawa and kind of that, just battered back and forth. And I was surprised when he asked me to marry him, but I always was happy that he would be in the crowd when I was going to go out with them, and especially if I was going to be with him, because I wasn't always with him. There was different people I would be with and different girls he would be with.
So what's your recollection of him asking you to marry you?
Well, at first, I mean, he only had 11 days leave.
Oh.
So for 11 days, we just ran around, had a good time, and it was wonderful. A wonderful honeymoon, but it was all in Fresno. And, well, we weren't concerned about paying bills or, you know, anything like that. It was just 10 days of wild fun, honeymoon time, I guess you could call it, you know. And I certainly didn't have any thinking about that I'd made a mistake during those 10 days.
So, but when he asked you, where were you? And what did he say? And did you say yes right away, or?
I don't know if I said yes right away, but I know where we were. We were at a drive-in movie, and I don't remember what it was. But so we were talking and kissing and stuff like that. It was his first night back, or not his first night back, because when he first came back, I was out of town. And so the first thing I knew about him being in town is when I got home and Mom said, "Well, you sure have a steady boyfriend coming over here." And I never knew if in those 10 days or however long that I was gone before I got back, I was staying with Bev. I didn't know he was even in town or coming home or anything. But after I got back and found out, and she said I had a steady boyfriend, I thought, well, I wonder if he came home and went to everybody else's house and everybody else was married or going with people. And, oh, God, if she comes home, that's the only chance I've got of finding anybody, you know. But I don't know, because I wasn't home. There could be, I mean, maybe he just had me on his mind more than I thought he did. Because we never wrote any love letters. You know, it wasn't that. It was like I told you. I would say who I'd been out with and who I saw and what we did. But he just, in Okinawa, he didn't have a lot to, just about he'd get drunk with his buddies and stuff like that is what he wrote about.
So then he asked you while you were at a movie, it was a drive-in, did you say?
Drive-in movie, yeah.
And you said yes.
Well, I don't think I said yes right away. Or even if it was that night, I'm not sure. I know he asked me that night. Maybe I said yes that night. He could be pretty convincing. Because it seemed like I came home from there and went in the folks' bedroom and told them I was going to get married. And she said, if you wait one day, you could get married on my wedding day, you know, which was the 24th. But I wanted my own wedding day, and I would still feel that way about it. I wouldn't want to get married on her wedding day.
So how soon after he proposed to you did you get married?
I think 3 days.
Oh.
Yeah. Pretty fast.
Not a long engagement.
No engagement at all, yeah. And I guess, well, I know that Wagner was with me when he went down and bought the ring. But I don't know if we were already married then or if we were going to get married.
Who's Wagner?
Oh, his best friend and my best friend, but a guy from Clovis who was just a good friend to Bev and I. Didn't date either one of them. He dated Nellie and Anita. But he was probably my best friend from that crowd. And he was Johnny's best friend. But he tried to talk me out of marrying him. Yeah, Johnny went down to get the rings, but I guess I was so set on it by then. And Jean said, he won't be a good husband. He won't work. He drinks. I mean, Jean just told me all those
Gene
things.
Wagner.
Yeah, Wagner.
Yeah.
And he was right about all of it.
You weren't having none of it though?
No, I was just, I was going ahead with it, you know. I didn't really give a chance to find out what he was like. I thought I knew him from 3 years of writing to him, you know, like that. But that was on a whole different level.
So your mom and dad, were they
Happy about it?
happy, or what did they think about your marrying Johnny?
Well, I don't remember them saying they're probably glad to get me out of the house. But because I was living with them, you know.
So this was like right after you got out of high school.
Yeah,
What year was it? Well, you got out of high school in 50, right?
yeah, I graduated in 50.
So June of 50. And then this, what time are we talking about now?
I think it's 52.
Okay, so you were staying at home for a
Yeah.
couple of years after you got out of high school?
Yeah, I was working at a telephone company, but I was living at home, yeah. And I was paying Mother $40 a month, I guess, to live there.
Which is quite a bit at that time.
Yeah, it was.
Seeing as how you said that rent, when you bought this house, was $50, not rent, but the mortgage payment on this house was $50.
50 a month, yeah.
So that, in today's dollars, you know, might be close to $1,000 that you
Yeah.
were giving your mom and dad to stay at their house.
Well, I think that she set the rate, you know, that said $40, because I don't know how I would have come up with that, but I thought that was what was expected of me.
How much do you think you were making at that time?
I think I started at 120 a week or something like that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So 40's not that
yeah.
big of a percentage
So
of that.
Yeah, it wasn't over half of my,
Oh, yeah, it sounds like you're making $450
yeah,
a month.
yeah.
So $40 of that's not all
Not
that much.
yeah,
Right? Does that sounds right?
yeah,
Yeah. So you had extra money that you were,
yeah. Peeling it out and buying them stuff and
yeah, I mean, what'd you do with all that extra money, Mom?
put it in the bank, and yeah, I did. I saved it, you know, mostly. I didn't, because I never did want a lot of clothes and stuff like that. That probably saved it mostly.
Mm-hmm. At some point at that time you go to Oklahoma or something?
Oh, I went with Anita to Lawton, Oklahoma, right?
And that was in what year?
51.
Uh-huh.
And she took Jody with her little
Yeah.
daughter. And Herbie went with us, which was her brother. And Beverly kind of had a crush on him, but he was married.
Did
And had
Bev go too?
Huh?
Did Bev go to Oklahoma?
No, she didn't go
too?
to Oklahoma, but she dated Herbie when
Mm.
he was living at their house, which was just around the corner from our house at that time. And I don't know if she knew he was married, but I think they had like 5 kids then. And then when Herbie went back to Oklahoma with us, they got together again. She got pregnant and had twins. So they had 7 kids. Yeah. She was a pretty girl, but she was just, I guess, too crazy about him. It was not good for her and couldn't resist him.
So did he move back there?
I think so. I don't remember him being over at Anita's house anymore.
That typical picture of my dad?
Right. Yeah, that's how he always looked when he came to the house. He was very leery of people, so he didn't want to go in there not protected. He had to have a gun when he went in. Well, this, as you know, is the picture that has appeared on, what do you call it, Facebook or something? Yeah.
Yeah, Simone posted it on Facebook.
Well, see, I really don't know how his family would react to her posting that picture like that, you know. But we were just acting silly, and there was a gun there, and the keys are, as you can see, hanging over the head. And so he just acted like he was a hold-up man or something. It was all a joke.
So what were you doing with the gun there?
I don't know.
So did you always have guns in the house?
No, no, I didn't always have guns in the house. I think that was I don't know where he got that gun from really, or if it was even a real gun. I don't know. I remember that I was there when the picture was taken though.
Did you take it?
I don't think I took it, but I think we were with Jean and Joe, another couple, and then maybe another couple, or, just kind of acting crazy at that house. I don't know whose house it was.
It's a classic photo, Mom.
Yeah, it is a classic.
You just don't get them much better than that. I mean, he looks like a character actor, sort of.
Yeah,
Looks
he
like.
does. He fills the part just perfect, yeah. Well, this is a wonderful picture of the Rhodes at an early time, and that was the dad, which he was dead by the time I married into that family. And Maddie, his wife, still had black hair. She had gray hair, I think, when I knew her. And behind her is Johnny, and then the one stooping down is Billy Don. Pardon me. And according to what she said on the back of that picture, her husband had just gotten out of the hospital, because he's got a hospital robe on and stuff like that. They look like they lived in an old house,
I think that's their old house. Did you ever visit them there?
No, I never.
Was this before you knew John?
Yeah. I might have known him and been dating him in Clovis, but never close enough to get to meet his family or anything like that. He would just be like we were in that picture. You didn't always be the same person, sometimes you were other people because you weren't really serious about them. But that's interesting that he's the one on there and Billy Don, those two. And then Frank, I think, was her husband's name. But she was still crazy about him. And he seems to have been a guy that came and went a lot, didn't stay home. She just got pregnant when he came home. Maybe I'm exaggerating that, but that's kind of what the other sister-in-laws that were there told me, that he wasn't around very much.
So were you and Maddie close?
Well, she was more of a listening mother to me than my mother was. Because I did talk to her about Johnny going out a lot, because he wouldn't come home after work and stuff like that. And she said, and she started crying. She said, I don't know why they're like that. I've had this conversation with each one of my daughter-in-laws. So see, they all got the father's ways. That's what they saw, and so that's what they did, I guess. But she was just very understanding. I could talk to her and tell her about those things, and she didn't say, well, he wouldn't do a thing like that, or, I know him better than you know him. No, she was just very understanding. And that's probably why he jerked her around like that, because she would understand it. And I don't know where Johnny got his ideas from. I don't know about the other brothers. There's one brother, Dell, was really a sweet one. I think he was the nicest guy, maybe, out of that. But I just don't see him ever treating women like his dad did.
So Frank, in this picture, he drank a lot. My dad drank a lot.
Yeah. Not good.
Not good?
No.
Your dad drank a lot?
Yeah. Not good.
Yeah, sort of a history of alcoholism in the family.
Yeah, on both sides.
Yeah, both sides. Thanks, Mom.
Well, you seem to be handling it quite all right. I
Yeah.
don't see you being that kind of a person.
Okay.
Oh, just that I don't know those other two people, Frank, and I never met Frank, but I can tell it's him from the other picture. But I'm figuring it's not a brother of Johnny's, and it might be some cousins from out of town, or I don't know who they are, but I never saw them before.
Okay.
This is a picture that should be enlarged and put someplace in somebody's house, because it's just a typical one of when the Okies came out in the 30s to California, and all the wildflowers around them, stuff like that, and the old car. And that's a good-looking car compared to a lot of them that came out at that time. And it's a classic. It is a classic picture.
That's the Rhodes family there.
The Rhodes family, and that was in 38 is when they came out. So I'm figuring that's probably 38.
Did my dad or Maddie or anybody ever tell you about their trip from Oklahoma and why they came here?
No, and I don't know why. I never talked to them about it.
Yeah.
I didn't think about it. Because when I was in kindergarten, that's when they came out. I mean, I know about them. They came out in 38. But I was in kindergarten when they first started coming, and all the boys were barefooted, and they wore those overalls. Like in the wintertime, they wore the long sleeves. In the summertime, they wore them without any sleeves, and always got to go barefooted. And I always thought how wonderful they don't have to wear shoes, And when we had our pictures taken, and I guess it was in kindergarten, the boys were sitting in the front, and Mother saw they were barefoot, and she said, "Those boys are barefooted, And I was thinking it was really nice, but she was just embarrassed that they would even show up like that.
So were they treated differently than other kids?
No, I think we played with them. I mean, they were just the nicest kids. They were very polite. They were nicer than the kids that I knew before. I don't really remember any girls, so I don't know if their girls went to school or not. Or maybe they just didn't have any girls in my room. Or I was just boy crazy and just remembered the boys. But that is a classic shot.
Well, they started coming in the mid-30s, and this was taken in 38, so
Yeah.
you must have been not very old when
No, I
they
was
started.
about 6 when they came
So,
out.
yeah, elementary school.
Yeah, he was 8 when they came out.
Johnny was?
Yeah,
Hmm.
and I was 6.
So do you know where they went when they got here? They come to Fresno, Clovis right away, or?
No, well, it seems like we read something lately that they came through Bakersfield, and I didn't know anything about that, and I don't know anything about their early days, because he was only 8, and he never even talked about, we never talked about when his folks came out from Oklahoma and stuff like that, and that I was already in school here.
I have to ask Charlene.
Tuesday morning. My dad and I are on our way to Lawton, and the following taped conversations will be between he and I. Go for it.
Are you going to transcribe this and put everything in order?
Yep.
Okay.
You tell the story, I'll write it.
Okay. Well, it was about on August the 1st, 1936. We were living in a little house in Mountain View, corner of 7th and Main. My dad had been driving a truck for a man there in Mountain View, hauling mules into Texas, into Fort Worth stockyard. It was hot. Nobody had a job. Dad had one for a while, and decided we'd go to Oklahoma, or we'd go to California. So, through all of the preparations, there was a young couple that had just married in the name of Roy and Mildred Frazier. Wanted to go with us. Another fellow by the name of O.B. Lewis, he wanted to go. Well, that meant there was my dad, mother, and the 5 kids. 10 of us in that old car that was a drive-away car. You still get them today if you want one. You go to Oklahoma City and they'll let you drive a car to California or to New York or whatever. Give you 7 days to get there. No, it was 10 days. Give you 10 days to get there. And then you turn the car in. Well, we all loaded up that August morning with a bunch of fried chicken and $25. 10 people in that old car, and everything we owned was in it or on it. and we headed for California. Why Dad took the southern route, we'll never know, but we went down through Abilene, El Paso, up into New Mexico, and we ran out of money in Deming. We'd spent that whole $25. Gas couldn't have been over 10, 12 cents a gallon, I guess. Car was fairly new, didn't have any trouble with it. But anyway, we spent 3 days in that Deming Park, and I have gone back several times to visit the park because of the memories that I remember of it. It came on. We waited there 3 days. Dad had called California, and
Who did he call in California? Who did he call in California?
he called Roy Montgomery.
Okay.
He called Roy, and Roy and Effie was already out there. It was either Roy and Effie, or he called Boyd Marshall. But anyway, they collected. Took them 3 days to get $25. They sent us an additional $25. That gave us enough money for gas and what little food we ate. We sure ate a lot of bologna. I remember Dad was his favorite thing. Stop and get a pound of bologna and a loaf of bread. And that was like a T-bone steak. We got to the border. I remember coming across the border. I also remember how today I remember seeing pictures of how they mistreated us Okies as we come across the border, but they treated us pretty good. They just went through our belongings and put everything back in the car, and we come on to L.A. We went to Bess and Boyd's house down on Pontius Avenue, I believe. But I tell you what, I never was so glad to get out of a car in my life. We got out, and of course all the hugging and the kissing going on. We had a good meal. Everybody visiting around, hadn't seen each other in quite a while. We stayed with them for a couple of days until we could find a house. And then by that time, Dad had to take that car back to the people that let us use it down into L.A. And Roy and Boyd then brought Dad back. We rented a house up near a little high school up off of Wilshire Boulevard. Must have been a 2-bedroom house. Wasn't much of a house. I think the rent was $7, $8 a month. So we got all of the stuff. We got furniture given to us, picked up at the junk wrecking yard or whatever you want to call it. Started school in a little school up there, about 5 blocks from the house.
How old were you at this time?
I was 8 in April before we went back there in August. So
okay. 8 years old.
And 4 or 5 months old, I guess. I was in the 3rd grade. I was in the 4th grade. I passed out of the 3rd grade here in Mountain View. 4th grade. Went there for a while, and then we moved down on Beloit Avenue, and we went to a school called Norris Sterry. That's the name of it today. Actually, at that time, it was the Sepulveda Grammar School, Sepulveda Boulevard. The principal was Norris Sterry, and in later years, they renamed it to Norris Sterry's Grammar School. We lived there, and that next summer, Dad and Jack and O.B. was still living with us. He was like a boarder, they went up to Arvin. Dad worked on the R. David Ranch. 17 cents an hour. They hired Jack and they hired OB and they all worked up there. 17 cents an hour.
What were they doing?
They were farm labor. They drove tractor. They did anything else. They chopped cotton. Whatever needed to be done. We moved up there later that year. I was in the 5th grade. We all moved into cotton camp. There was about 8 or 10 tents. Some of the tents had floors in them. Ours didn't. Ours had a dirt floor. We all lived in it, all 7 of us. 5 boys, Mom and Dad. We lived in that tent. We lived there through the winter. Dad's still working on the farm. We had one faucet outside for water for everybody. You had to go to the faucet for water, and there was a irrigation canal out in the back where we took a bath. Summer and winter, the water was always in it. Sometimes we'd take our bath in the old tin tub like everybody talks about, and that Saturday night bath is not a myth, it's a fact. And by the way, the cleanest kid got to bathe first.
Absolutely.
And then the next one, and the next one, and the dirtiest one, he got to take a bath last. But we lived in that cotton camp, and we went to a school called Vineland over there. That was a little one-room school, 8 grades, 1 teacher. Each grade class had 1 row. And I was in the 5th grade. Ultimately, we moved on into Arvin, and I went to start school at Haven Drive Grammar School. We walked to school, of course, from there, and then we moved out on Haven Avenue, which was about 1.5 miles, and we walked that 1.5 miles, which was no big thing. We had our friends that lived between where we were and where we lived, and in the school. They actually brothers. There was 3 or 4. There was brothers, 1 sister. And as I grew on up there in Arvin, we went to the theater we could get the theater for a dime. That movie, and always had a comedy, coming attraction. We cut grapes. We picked up potatoes, which was one horrendous job. Kind of got a promotion. This was up after I graduated from grammar school. I got to work on the truck. They call it swamping. We swamp potatoes, put them up on the truck, and haul the truck into the packing house, unloaded it. Today they do all of that in the field. Their machinery is digger, sorter, sacker. They do all that right in the field. They don't have any. They still have packing houses, but they don't use them like they did back in those days.
But you did it like we saw in that history of Arvin.
Yep. And worked in the tomatoes. Worked in the packing house in the tomatoes. We unloaded shook, what they call shook, out of boxcars. And for the box builder, they take the shook we unloaded, and they built their own boxes for the packing house. When I was in the 8th grade, I went to work for a fellow by the name of Elmer Smotherman. He owned a little dairy there in Harvard. And I got 25 cents a day for cleaning the bottles, sterilize them. He had an old sterilizer there that was made out of an old hot water heater. He had little brushes that was on a motor that I put the bottles in soapy water and cleaned them, then put them in the bags upside down where they'd drain, put them in the sterilizer. That was 25 cents a day. If I went with him on the route, I got another 25 cents. He sold all of his milk bottled. He was a regular milkman.
So you went from house to house?
House to house. He had regular customers. And if I went with him on the route, I got another 25 cents. If I cleaned the barn, I got another 25 cents. So ultimately, I could make 75 cents a day. And I saved, every time he would pay me, I would give this money to my mother. Because I was going to be in high school that fall. And so we went to Bakersfield. Had all that money. I don't know how much it was. I don't remember. But I bought my first pair of Levi's.
Levi Strauss?
Levi Strauss. $1.35. That was, well, even in those years, that was a lot of money.
Well, of course.
And
cost you $40 now.
Yeah, $40 now. But $1.35. I don't remember. I bought 2 or 3 pair of Levi's. And, some little old stretch T-shirts, striped stretch T-shirts. And I thought I was in hog heaven. But I really, worked for every bit of it.
Yeah.
And then we moved over into the government camp over at Wheat Patch. I guess it's what they call subsidized housing today. There was no welfare. Nobody got any welfare there. If you didn't work.
I seen the dust so black that I couldn't see a thing, and the wind so cold, boy, it nearly cut your water off. I seen the wind so high that it blowed my fences down. I seen the wind so high that it blowed my fences down. Buried my tractor 6 feet underground. Well, it turned my farm into